OK 大家好，谢谢大家今天上来。我刚在聊天里边发了一个这个表格，就是说你今天来听过这个讲座。如果是有 email 的话，我可能把资料今天如果有什么资料，我可能会发到你们提供的 email 里边。OK 今天大家上来讲呢，就是上来听的是这个怎么把家里的这个防寒保暖，尤其是现在冷天开始了，怎么可以把家里的这个供暖还有就是那个冷气 OK 可以节省这个钱 OK 我们今天邀请到这个 Steve Luton 他是这个执行董事来的 OK 他是非常高兴去可以分享一个怎么可以帮大家省钱的，还有什么计划是可以参加的现在这个我们是录音的 OK 所以我们会放在 YouTube 里边，可是我们问答的时候我们这个是不会放上去的 OK 今天是我李平好是我们是这个住房基金的住房商务经理，也我们还有张朵朵，他是我们这实习生 OK 就是现在所有人的声音都是开的 OK 有的都是可能对你们来讲没用，可是希望大家可以去接受，就是一个思想开明，就是去接受新的资料 OK 如果有问题的话，可以在聊天里边打字，也可以就是举手 OK 如果真的是关于刚刚说的等一下他说的时候中间有什么问题是跟这个有关系的话，大家也可以就是举手，我也可以让你们去问问题的如果新朋友不知道我们是做什么，我们是非盈利的，在唐人街的，我们可能去打算把服务带到东北去，可是现在基本上疫情的话，很多我们都不需要去过来唐人街了，我们就是可以在网上帮你服务的 OK 这个是我们以前的办公室，可是你们如果去来唐人街的话，经过走街的话都看到这个，可是我们不在里边办公 OK 我应该有同事在里边办公，可是我们做服务的是搬到这个大厦的2楼 OK 所以如果有事找我们的话，还是先打电话，我们再跟你说下一步是怎么样我们做不同的服务，所以我这里也不说了，基本上你打电话过来，有事的话打电话过来，我们就可以跟你说是可以帮忙还是不帮忙的OK 人口普查，帮我找一下你身边还有谁是没有做的，我们之前8月底的是53，现在好像是57还是58吧 OK 我们还有42% 的是还没填呢，所以希望大家帮我找他们去来 OK 帮他们填 OK 因为再不填的话我们费城了下个10年就没办法拿到足够的基金去收入去就是安全这方面都没办法保证。如果有人敲门，不管你填了还是没填的，有可能有人敲门 OK 如果没填的，他会敲门帮你填，如果填了，如果你的表格上面可能有什么问题的话，他们可能去敲门去确认一下了，所以麻烦大家给他们开门 OK 他们应该是有一个人口普查的袋子的 OK 可是也不是什么人都开，所以大家要小心一点这个是没有了 OK今天12点我们是在我们现在每一周星期5到10月份的 OK 我们都有拍这个吃的有时候是非常好的，有时候可能不太好的 OK 可是我们也不知道他们给我们是什么东西去发出去的，可是12点到3点会发然后呢还有一个我们有高中，如果你有高中生7年级的都是做 middle school 吧到12年级的，我们都是有星期2到星期5，星期5我们是有一个功课辅导的，所以如果你有孩子有问题的也可以过来参加 OK 然后就是想跟大家说有一个新的关于这个租金补助，非常租金补助是还有就是贷款补助 OK 是9月30号完成到期的现在租金是非常好的，它可以补贴到1500块钱一个月，之前是说750块，可是它前2天刚刚增加到1500块。如果身边有朋友是需要申请租金补助的话，快一点申请，因为9月30号到期的。然后贷款补助啦 OK 如果你失业金拿失业金的话，不管你的失业金是多少，你都是可以申请的 OK 你不用说我的失业金比我的工资还多OK 这个他不管你的，他只是看你是不是拿到失业金，有拿失业金的话，证明你是失业的话，你就可以去申请 OK 所以大家可以有问题可以打电话过来问。有很多人说福利失业金差不多完了，怎么去申请 ？OK， 延长的，我在微信上都有这些发也发出去的。OK， 如果大家真的是还有什么问题想面对面的 ，OK， 想知道我们是谁的话，我们明天星期六11点到2点原来是在世界广场，可是我们这一周都搬到这个消防局门口，所以你到时候会看到我们有一些帐篷放在哪里。倒是有一些小礼本就是有些是口罩有的是可能 T 恤衣服的好像比较小，可是还有其他的可能袋子，这些是派给大家了，可以过来跟我们见面 ，OK。所以我现在就是暂停到这里 ，OK。如果是然后我现在就是交给 Steve 的让他去介绍他自己，然后他就可以开启他的资料 ，OK。Steve, I'm passing it on to you now.
Okay.
So Steve, just want to remind you, maybe every 2 sentences, you can take a pause so Dor can translate for you.
Okay. First of all, Ping, do I have the screen up? Can you see it?
Yes, the screen is up.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, Ping. I'm delighted to be able to share some energy-saving tips for everybody. I know there about 2 or 3 sentences I should stop.
Yeah, Dor, you can just come in and translate.
OK， 大家好，我是今天的翻译。然后刚才 Steven 说，他是今天会给大家提供一些能源，怎么帮助我们节省能源的一些小提示。OK, Steven.
Okay, and we understand that folks are a little concerned about having a weatherization company come into your home. So as a result, I've put together some tips where you don't need anybody other than you or your family members to perhaps use these tips to save energy without having to go have your home weatherized.
他说就是他今天提供的一些小提示，可以帮助您或者您的家人来进行一个你家里面的一些防寒保暖的一些措施。
Okay. All right, and today we're just going to focus on the 2 biggest parts of an energy bill, and that's heating, as we're getting closer to winter, and of course air conditioning as well, which every year the air conditioning season has been increasing as a result of climate change. So air conditioning now is pretty important if you want to save money.
今天主要讲的是一个冷气和暖气的一些给我们的一些小提示，然后特别是冷气我们现在用的比较多，然后一年的话消耗也比较多，所以这个非常重要，对我们能够省下一大笔钱。
So we will get right into ways that you can save money. Now, if you do use air conditioning, it actually is more cost effective to use a fan in conjunction with your air conditioning. We've got a simple box fan, like a $20 from a big box store fan that can be used, but fans don't cost anything, relatively speaking, to operate, and they make air conditioning more efficient because they spread out that very sluggish cold air much better.
好，第一个就是说我们可以用这个电风扇，然后电风扇的话，我们通常花20块钱左右就能买到一台电风扇，然后它也是比较高效的一种排冷气的方法。
And if your home has a ceiling fans are the most cost-effective device in your home. And I say that because they can be run year round, not just with air conditioning, as most people associate fans. They can also be run with your heating system, because as soon as your heat comes out of the radiator or the vent, it rises very quickly to your ceiling, just as if you let go of a helium balloon. You want me to say more, or is that?
No, can you repeat? Sorry.
Sure. So ceiling fans are one of the most cost-effective devices in your home. And the reason being is they use very, very little energy, and they can make your much more expensive heated air or air-conditioned air move around better. So it's very cost-effective to use the ceiling fan, not just with air conditioning, but also with heating.
他们是说了，如果你是用这个偏夸的这个风扇的话，就是非常。
看没有啊没有。
OK， 听得到了。就是说天花板的这个风扇呢，其实就是可以比较有效的可以节能的，不管你是有开暖气还是冷气，因为它令到这个空气就是去循环的这个是对这个能源还有这个钱的节省是非常有效的。Good, you can keep going.
Okay. I apologize if this is a little too complicated or a little too wordy. So still talking about ceiling fans, and most folks do have ceiling fans in their homes, but if you don't, I'd strongly recommend that you invest in having one put in areas where you spend a lot of time. Your living room, your bedroom for sure. Again, because they can make what we call conditioned air spread out better. And there's two directions that the fan can rotate in, obviously. And the best direction for air conditioning is counterclockwise. Every fan has a little button where you can change the direction of the blades. So if you do have a ceiling fan and you want to maximize its effectiveness, you can paraphrase this, then you want to make sure that the blades are turning in a counterclockwise direction. And what that will do is pick up all the cold air that's laying on the floor and throw it up so you can feel it.
OK， 它就是说，如果吊扇的话就比较方便，然后我们可以装在那个客厅或者装在我们的卧室里面，然后它的风向的话，我们可以去调整它的风向，不像空调的话，它是对着一个方向吹的，然后吊扇的话，它可以有我们自己去改变它的风向，这样的话使用更方便一些。
我就是讲一些，它就是主要还说就是，如果你有哪些地方是经常有人的话就是可以加这个风。Steve, I just want to make sure, even people have air conditioning, it will be also a good idea for people to install these ceiling fans.
Yes, you run them together. That's really the idea here, is that folks will think of a fan as you just run a fan, or their air conditioning or heating, and they just run that. But really what I'm trying to get across here is that run them both. Keep in mind that a ceiling fan or just a box fan or any type of fan costs about 5 to 8 cents an hour to run, which is virtually nothing. Whereas an air conditioner costs about 20 cents an hour. So it's a good way to make that air conditioner more efficient, even though it's counterintuitive to run two devices at the same time.
OK， 他就是建议你就是在开冷气的时候，也同时可以开风扇，这样的话会让这个系统更加高效的工作。
So Steve, does that mean that if using both, maybe the air conditioning
doesn't need to doesn't need to turn on that low temperatures, right?
Right. And speaking of air conditioning and temperature, the most cost-effective temperature setting for, let's say, if you do have a central air conditioning, where you have a thermostat that gives you degrees, is 70, 74, 75. And if you use a fan with that, then it will feel very comfortable at 75 degrees.
然后他说，如果我们家里用中央空调的话，它差不多是调到74到75度左右。然后我们如果再加上这个风扇的话，我们会就是感觉非常舒服了。
So I'll stop talking about the fans and talk about other things that you can do to make sure that your machine, your air conditioner, is running as efficiently as possible. Make sure that the filters are inspected and, if needed, cleaned every month while you're operating the unit. Let's say from May through September, October. Those filters are so important in terms of the efficiency of the air conditioner, and a lot of times folks neglect them, and it costs them money. Just simply by not looking at the filter and cleaning it.
OK， 他现在说，我们现在从那个刚才风扇已经讲完了，现在我们讲一下这个冷气。然后我们空调的话，他说，也是一个非常好的一个让我们的能源，然后呢高效的能源。然后呢，他建议我们是每一个月做一下它的那个过滤器的这个inspection， 就是检查，然后每个月去检查一下它的过滤器是否干净，然后你要做一下清洁，这样子的话会让我们这个是能源更加节省。
So if you have a room air conditioner, as you can see in these different slide or different pictures, the filter generally is very easily removed, so you can inspect it. The left picture shows typically the type of filter now in most room air conditioners or window air conditioners. You simply lift up the filter, and if it looks dirty, you run it under your sink and wash it out. As you can see in the top right picture, that's what a dirty filter looks like. And believe it or not, that filter, just to give you an example of how that can impact the performance, that probably cuts the efficiency of your air conditioner by as much as 50%, all for simply lack of inspection and cleaning.
这里就是给我们图片上面给我们看了一下我们这个空调的这里面的这个过滤器，然后呢，我们其实可以一打开就可以看到这个过滤器，它很方便拿出来的。然后我们每个月都要做清洁，然后可以把它放在我们的厨房的这个水槽里面进行冲洗，然后冲洗完了以后晾干以后再放回去就可以了。然后图片右上角那个图片就是用的比较脏的那个。它就是这样会影响我们的这个使用，然后也让我们的那个电费啊什么都会增加。
我就在有增加，就是说他给我们一个数字，就是如果右边这个全部脏的话，基本上你的冷气的话就是只有一半的功效。
Okay, and the bottom right picture shows somebody that would have central air conditioning. So if you do live in a home as opposed to an apartment or condo, you probably have a machine that looks like that, and that's where you would find the filter. And it just pulls out, and it can be inspected. But rather than cleaning those filters, they're usually thrown out and replaced with new ones. And that really goes for heating and cooling if you have a furnace that actually runs during the summer and the winter. So again, I just really stress the importance of something that is low to no cost, and that is the filter in these machines. It can really impact the efficiency and the comfort that you're getting as well.
然后这个右下角这幅图是中央空调的这个我们的冷气的机器，然后你也可以把它打开来，它通常在我们家里的一些储藏室里或者什么地方，然后你可以把它打开来，然后里面这个过滤片你可以把它拉出来，然后进行清洗。然后如果实在是比较脏或者比较老旧了，你就可以换新的一片。通常的话，它可以保持一个夏天到冬天的时间。然后如果它太脏的话，也会非常影响它的使用率。
Okay. For homes where you have to use room air conditioners, if you've got an old unit, it's just not cost effective to keep running it until it stops running. When you look for a room air conditioner, they have to have this yellow label to the right here. It's called an energy guide label, and it's mandated by the government, and it shows you the efficiency ratings. So if you see this particular example, it says 10.7. They actually can be as low as 8, and they can be as high as 15 or 16. So the bottom line is, the higher the number, the more efficient it is. So it pays to spend more on a energy efficient air conditioner, 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way up to 15, as opposed to the cheap ones that you see when you walk into a big store that are $99. That money that you saved on the $99, you're going to make up paying it to Pico with inefficient units.
OK， 这个就是他们检测，这个表格就是他们检测你的那个空调的效率的一个标准。然后的话，它的这个点数看下面有一个10.7，这些就是效率表，效率的数字。如果它的数字越高，代表你的效率更高一些，也就是更省钱一些。然后你平时也可以去那个 Pico 去申请一些能源效率的一个他们有一个9.9块的一个plan， 然后你可以去申请。
它其实还有就是说这个指示到最高的是15的 ，OK， 它就是说如果你在外面买一些非常便宜的这个电器产品的话，有可能你是一开始付的是比较低，可是到最后的时候你付这个电费就是把这个电费的钱交给Pico， 所以就浪费很多钱。
Okay. If you live in a home where you have a basement or crawl space, but most typically if you live in a row home, a basement, if you have central air conditioning, you're also going to have ducts. And sometimes just taking a flashlight, or if you can see in your basement, just looking at your ducts and seeing if you see any holes, because that means air is leaking out and not going where it's supposed to. So what I've shown here in this picture is a classic example of a hole that even the person who installed it didn't think much about. But as we now know, that's like costing them probably $10, $15 a year in lost air. So seal up the ducts and just simply look for holes. It doesn't take a professional to look for a hole.
对，然后如果家里用那个中央空调的话，通常我们在地下室能看到它会有一个管道，然后如果我们就是平常的话要去地下室检查一下这个管道上面是否有一些洞，比如说这个图片上面它就有一个洞，然后这个洞的话会造成一些气体的泄漏，所以它会使我们花更多的钱。
And the fix, when you do see a hole, is a fairly cheap product that you can buy at Home Depot, Lowe's, hardware stores. It's called mastic, as you see at the top there. And you can just smear it on, and it goes on and hardens, and it will last forever, and it effectively seals those leaks. Or you can use foil tape to seal up the holes. But it's very important to inspect your ductwork and look for holes. They're going to be everywhere and anywhere, and seal them up. And that will make a difference both in your comfort and your energy bill.
OK， 如果你更好的话是买这种叫做 master tape， 然后去把它这个就缝隙的地方给它涂上，像这图片一样把它涂上，这样的话会更保证它不会有气体的泄漏。
Here are other examples of what you will typically see in your basement with metal ducting. And these have been like that. These examples have probably been like this for many years. And it just simply represents wasted air, wasted money, ultimately. So again, these could be taped or the product that I mentioned, duct mastic, just to seal up the hole. That's all you have to do is identify where a hole is and just simply seal it up.
这个图片上面我们看到这个管道上面是有一个间隙的，是有缝隙的。然后如果你有看到这种情况的话，也就是还是刚才他提到的这两种，一种是胶带，或者是刚才他提到的这个 duct mastic， 然后我们可以去 Home Depot 买了以后呢，可以把它封上就可以。
So just basic, what we call behavioral or lifestyle tips that you don't have to go out and buy anything to save money on your air conditioning bill. I'll just list off these tips. First of all, when it's really hot out, and we had a very, very hot summer, the third hottest on record, if you can believe it. And if you do need to keep cool, following these tips will make a slight difference. So first of all, and this is common sense, but as the old joke goes, common sense isn't so common anymore. So avoid generating heat during the hottest part of the day, like at 12 noon. Actually, the hottest part of any day is always about 3 to 4 p.m. That's when the sun is at its peak and all the energy that it's put out has accumulated. So let's just say during the afternoon, try to avoid generating anything that creates heat inside your house. Whether you run air conditioning or you can live without air conditioning, it's just going to make your home uncomfortable. So I'll just run through these and then you can just run through them. Try not to boil water. So if you decide pasta or rice or whatever, which requires boiling water, try to minimize that or save it for the evening. Likewise with baking. Baking is the worst thing you can do because, that's 350 degrees, 400 degrees. That energy does get into the rest of your home or your apartment. So try to avoid that because it's just going to make your air conditioning or your comfort that much more uncomfortable. Long hot showers or baths, that adds a lot of humid air, particularly showers, to your air, and it's humidity that really makes us feel uncomfortable. So try to avoid taking your shower or bath again in the afternoon on a hot day. Not too many folks have incandescent bulbs, but there are folks that have halogens. Try to avoid keeping lights off, even compact fluorescents and LEDs. But any type of lighting, ideally try to keep it off because it actually adds heat to your air.
OK， 他刚才就是讲我们如何省一下电，然后在夏天的时候，我们这里天气非常高，气温非常高，特别是在下午3点到4点的时候达到它的峰值。然后呢，在这一期间的话，我们需要避免做一些事情，就是尽量不要去煮热水，尽量把煮热水的工作放在晚上去做。还有一个是尽量不要去用烤箱烤东西，因为烤箱的温度我们每次设定基本上要300到400度左右，所以这是非常影响我们房间里面的温度的。然后呢，还有一个就是不要选择这个时间点去洗热水澡，然后洗很长很长的时间。然后还有一个就是不要开白炽灯，把灯关掉， 如果房间里面不是特别暗的情况下，你就把灯关掉。还有一个就是可以安装一些那个窗帘布，这样子的话可以挡住下午的这个日照过来的灯。
And the last tip is if you have windows that face east or west, and you don't need a compass to determine that, if you get up in the morning from 7 or 8 when the sun rises till, let's say, noon, if you have sunlight shining through a window, that's an easterly facing window. And then conversely, in the afternoon, if you have sun shining in through a window, it's probably southerly west facing window. So it's best to, if you're trying to keep your house cool or your apartment cool, buy, if you don't have curtains, and block that sunlight. That sunlight, as nice as it looks, is adding heat to your environment. And it does pay to block it, even though it may make your home or that room darker. If cooling is more important, then try to block that sunlight because it does carry energy with it.
对，然后就刚才讲到的，就是说，如果您的某一扇窗是朝西的，那么在太阳下山的时候，就会晒到我们房间里面来，就是让房间变得很热。然后，所以这个时候我们最好是选择用窗帘安装窗帘，把这个日照给挡住。这样子的话，会让我们这个冷气更高效的运作。
Now we're going to switch to talking about heating as the days get cooler. We're going to start focusing obviously on heating issues. So as much as I just talked about identifying windows that allow sunlight to shine through them and then blocking that sunlight when it's hot out, you want to do the exact opposite when it's cold out. Because as I said, that sunlight carries energy. And that energy is free. So as it shines on your carpet, on your floor, it actually is warming up that mass, as we call it, whatever it is, and then releasing energy. It might give you 1 to 2 degrees, believe it or not. So let the sun shine through windows. In the wintertime, this is throughout the day. But as soon as that sun sets, close the curtains because the energy is going to start going back through the windows. So you sort of have to be sort of get into that mode of letting the sun shine during the day in the wintertime, like January, February. And then as soon as it gets dark out, close the curtains because the easy way for that energy to go back out is the way it got in, through a window. Window really doesn't stop energy at all.
OK， 我们现在要讲到刚才冷气已经讲完了，现在讲暖气。然后呢，开头我们提到说，夏天的时候我们最好让我们装一个窗帘，把太阳给挡住，这样可以让我们的冷气更高效的运作。然后呢，到了冬天的时候，这个操作是要相反了，然后我们需要把窗帘打开，让太阳照进来。这样子的话，可以保持我们屋子里面暖和。这样子相当于这个是一个免费的能源给我们用。
And just as I said, 75 degrees for air conditioning is the most cost-efficient temperature setting. In the wintertime, when you've got your heater on, the most cost-effective thermostat setting is 68 degrees. And for some folks, that's a little cool. So the tip is to dress appropriately. Some people like to walk around in a t-shirt or very light clothing, and that they might feel cold, and then they go to the thermostat and then they turn it up, and that's costing you money because it's wintertime. You should be wearing a long sleeve, a sweater. Obviously, just dressing appropriately will help you feel comfortable without having to turn up your thermostat, so you can keep it at 66, 67, 68 degrees.
好，刚才建议我们开冷气的时候开到74、75度左右，然后如果我们是开暖气的话，我们建议开到68度左右。那有些人很喜欢在屋子里面是穿短袖的，他就想要把 暖气开得更高，这样子我们就是会更花费我们的钱，所以我们建议是开到68度，然后您可以穿一些长袖啊，在家里面就可以。
And just as important as any of the tips that I've given, and again, this doesn't cost anything, but it can make a big difference, is depending on the type of heat you have in your house, whether it comes out as air through a vent, as you see in the left, the picture here, or you have radiators or baseboard radiators. It's important that they are open so that precious heat that comes out of it is not obstructed. And a lot of folks will put their sofas, for instance, in the living room over a vent. And I guarantee you that room is going to be a little cooler because it's not getting the intended air. So if at all possible, try to make these vents and radiators as unobstructed with curtains, with furniture, whatever the case is. Keep them unobstructed as much as possible. And that also can make a comfort difference in that particular room or area.
这个就是说我们在开暖气的时候，我们需要去检查一下它的通风口是不是顺畅的，有没有受阻的。然后如果有的话，我们需要处理一下；如果没有的话，这样子我们才能让暖气出来，然后更高效的运作。
In the wintertime, again, just focusing on low-cost, easy ways to save energy and improve your comfort. Cover the windows as soon as the sun stops shining through them. And I know I talked about this before, but buying a heavy curtain, as opposed to just a curtain that you can see through, but a heavy curtain will actually save you money on your heating bill. And it does pay to cover your windows. Windows are the easiest way for energy to escape from that room, from that area in your home. So without having to buy new windows, just simply covering up those windows is as effective as replacing a window, believe it or not.
那个在冬天的时候，然后我们最好是需要买一些比较厚一点的窗帘，然后这样子呢，可以让那个阻隔外面的冷气进来。
And one of the biggest energy saving tips, again, is keeping your thermostat set at the most cost effective setting, 68. This is the gas pedal of your home. And the more you lean into it, obviously, the more fuel is going to be consumed. But the best way to save energy is when you're ready to go to sleep. And let's assume that most people sleep for 6 to 8 hours. If you can set your thermostat back 5 degrees, you'll save 10 to 15% on your energy bill. If you can do that every night, if you like 68, then set it back to 63, 62. Never go below 60, because then it starts to create another problem. So 62, 63, if normally you keep it at 68. Just keep that 5-degree difference, and that will give you about a 10 to 15% savings just by simply maybe adding an extra blanket, which doesn't really cost anything. And you might even sleep better. Most humans are designed to sleep in cool weather. So we sleep better, in fact. So it doesn't hurt to turn your heat down at night. And the more you can turn it back, the more energy you're going to save, obviously.
然后呢，这个暖气的话，我们每调低1度的话，它都会能节约3%左右。然后如果能超过8个小时，然后调低5度的话，它将会节约10%到15%的能源。
And lastly, if we start feeling more comfortable to have people coming into our homes, if you are income eligible, there is a very, very good program that my agency runs called weatherization. and it will go through the folks would go through your entire house and make sure that everything in your house is as good as it could get. And that doesn't cost anything. And if needed, we'll replace windows. We'll tune up your heater. We'll do a lot of sealing up. All the gaps and cracks and joints in the house, we'll seal those up as well because they can make you feel cold. So I've listed here our website. It's I'm looking at it. It's www dot, not www, comma. And that's our number. And just you'll have an option and just hit, I believe it's number 2 for weatherization. And you have to fill out an application. But again, the service is free. And on average, we spend about $5,000 to $7,000 in everybody in homes to make them more energy efficient. So it's a great service if you're income eligible. And if you're on fixed income, you most likely are income eligible. Take advantage of it.
好，然后这里讲到的就是我们可以请这些能源协调机构，然后呢，请专业的人员帮我们检查家里面的这些能源是否有效的在使用。他会帮我们检查一些屋顶啊，或者是在地下室啊，去检查这些管道啊，或者是其他窗户啊，有没有一些气体的泄漏，或者有没有洞。然后呢，这个是下面这个网址3W 点，这个网址是他们的网址，然后你可以登录，然后去申请一个检测，然后这个检测是免费的，它将会就是通过检测以后，它会帮你省下很多的钱。
我再补充一点，就是他也说他基本上是要看你收入的这个，我们叫它中文是房行保暖的计划如果是需要的话，我们 PCDC 也是有帮忙的可是你可以打电话，还有上去他的网址看看是不跟他们联系，看看合不合资格。他说每一个家庭有申请的话，他大概可以用5000到7000吧
，7000。
5000到7000的去帮这个家庭去把这个房行保暖的工作做好。
And that's the end of my slides.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Can you actually tell, usually for the weatherization program, what kind of work is done in the home?
Okay. We the most important things we do are adding insulation, which will be in your attic. Now, let's say you live in a row home. Most homeowners, surprisingly, are unaware that there's actually a small attic between their ceiling and the roof. And we actually get in there and add 12 inches of insulation. And that's the most cost-effective thing that we do by far. Insulation is the most cost-effective measure. Another important thing that we do that makes that insulation cost-effective is that we seal up the house. We primarily work in the attic, that same space that I just mentioned. And if you don't have access to it, we can cut access in a bedroom closet on the 2nd or 3rd floor and get into it. We air seal it. Moving air can make you feel uncomfortable, so we seal it up. So we do that in the attic and the basement mostly, and that stops all these air currents that tend to make people feel cold. So the most cost-effective things we do are insulation, air sealing, and that's why we use this big fan called a blower door fan. And then we also replace windows as needed, not automatically, but if a window is in very poor shape, we will replace it with a brand new thermally efficient window. So those are the top 3 things that we do that just about house in and house out. Insulation, air sealing, and replacing windows and doors, exterior doors if they're in bad shape as well.
他刚才说他们进去检测的话，会检测3个部分，一个是一个我们屋顶的一个保暖的材料，这个绝缘的材料，看一下它是不是都是好的，会不会 就是如果它是不好的，就是会冬天就会冷，夏天就会热这样子，它会检测这个。然后还有一个，它有一个风机门测试，然后去定位房屋里面是不是有一个泄漏。然后另外的话，它也会去检测你的门窗是不是有不好的，如果有的话需要更换。
Steve, so it comes to the questions that when people purchase the house, they don't actually say, people doesn't know there was an attic in between the roof and the ceiling. So how do people know whether the house is insulated correctly?
This is the best way to determine that. If you're purchasing a house, and if it's in Philadelphia, 98% of the time it's going to be a row home. So if you're in that second, or if it's the 3-story, the 3rd story, doesn't matter, whatever the uppermost level is, and you don't see a little panel in the ceiling, that means that there's no access to that attic, and most likely there is no insulation at all. And typically that's what we find when we have to cut a hole is, if the house was built in 1935, it's never had insulation in it. We see the lath and the plaster that's 70, 80 years old. So if you don't see an access to it, then you can assume there is no insulation. But we can get it in there. We can retrofit you can retrofit insulation into that space. And we put 12 inches, which is all you need. It's like putting on a big blanket.
Okay. 我刚才问问题，因为有很多人就是说，买了房子，可是真的不知道楼上是有没有做到这个保养的功夫，就是这个隔层的功夫。等一下，多短你可以6月6。所以如果就是买了房子之后，就真的不知道。然后Steve 的意思就是说，如果你的是在费城，通常就是排屋吧。可是排屋如果是很多时候只是排屋是没有办法可以闪区的话，其实地方通常都是没有做这个隔层的保障。所以他就是说，所以他们一些是可以去哪里，然后帮你就是可能在那个房间的那个衣柜里边可以开一个洞，然后他们可以闪区，就是帮你安装一个12寸的，就算是可能就是一个很厚的这个这个壁纸吧 ，OK， 然后它装在上面的话，这个就是可以把你的房子更加的保暖温保暖 ，OK。I do have another question. I think you talk about the ceiling fan. A lot of houses, the ceilings are low, so they really cannot install ceiling fan. So is there any options for that?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, first of all, building code requires ceilings to be 8 feet, but let's just assume that there's a lot of construction that went on that wasn't through building code. There are ceiling fans that you can mount right on the ceiling without having that pedestal, that rod that comes down. They just mount flush on the ceiling, and that gives you an extra foot. So if you've got a 7-foot ceiling, and provided nobody in your house is 7 feet tall, you can actually put one of these, what they call flush mount ceiling fans, because there's nothing that's more cost effective than a ceiling fan. As soon as we get away from that, then we're dealing with something that is not as effective as that ceiling fan. So probably if you can't get a ceiling fan in that room, then just buying a $20 box fan that just sits on your floor. Very low energy use, and it will pick up the cold air and push it up against the walls and sort of create a what we call a vortex. And that will have a positive impact as well. So really just, if you can't put a ceiling fan in, any type of other fan placed low on the floor, ideally, no more than 2 or 3 feet high, maybe on a stand or something, and run it at a low speed, not high speed, always low speed so it doesn't create wind chill. And that will again, make your heating or air conditioning more efficient.
我刚才问的问题，因为是我家里也是有这个问题。他说这个吊线就是放一个吊的风扇，可是我家里的那个天花是非常低的，我基本上我就是一跳我都可以碰到，就是高一点的碰到。所以怎么装这个吊线？他就是说，如果你是没办法装吊线的话，你买一个20块钱的这个风扇，可以坐在地上的就是把它就是开了，就是一个低的 ，OK， 不是太带风的，就是小风的。就是让这些家里的这个冷气就是可以有一个循环，这样子就让它可以反射到这个吹到这个墙墙就反就是还弹为打呀，这样子就是有一个循环，这个你的家里的就会更好的。So this is really new to me because I always think, okay, you turn on the air conditioner, you should not turn on the fan, okay? So this is really good new idea for me. 我就是跟他说，因为我家里我经常就是说，你开了冷气就不要开风扇吧。就是今天真的是学到，就是原来是可以两样一起开的。So do you know if people turn on both or compare that they only turn on one, like air conditioning? What will be like? How much would they save money?
They'll save money, and that's really why I offered that tip, is because it's counterintuitive. Like, wait a minute, I'm running my air conditioner and my fan. Now I'm going to double my bill. No, that's not correct at all. You have to keep in mind that a fan is very, very energy efficient. It's just an electric motor, which really doesn't use a lot of energy. So it might cost the same as running a 60-watt light bulb, which is pretty low. But what it'll do is make air-conditioned air is very sluggish. It doesn't like to rise like heated air does. It just, as it comes out, whether it's an room air conditioner, whether it's a vent in your floor, it comes out and it just sits there. It's dense, heavy air. So that's why the fan really is effective, because it pushes it. And for 60 watts, which is virtually nothing, it will take that expensive air, which doesn't want to move, and distribute it throughout the room. And that's why, most people, I've been doing this for 25 years, and most people will either use a fan or an air conditioner, heat or a fan. And I did that until I got into this business. So it's just natural, it's intuitive to not run two things. But this is actually counterintuitive. You run both, and you'll actually save money and probably be more comfortable.
OK， 因为我刚才就是他说，通常就是真的是想到只开风扇，不要开冷气了，开冷气不要开风扇。然后他就是说，其实风扇是用的非常低能源的。然后还有就是因为你的家里的冷气，一个是中央的，还是他们是吹出来之后是不太愿意去动的。所以如果你加了风扇过去的话，他就把这些风就是逼着他们可以去在家里边流动。所以这个是一个非常好的建议。